separately, and giving strong emphasis on sadhana. I think these are some of the important factors.
Yeah. Once you develop a core group, then in that core group, others can build from there. Any other questions? Yes.
Just a question in relation to Maharaj, when you were just saying that you had regular classes for the brahmacharis, you mean classes specifically about brahmacharya, or you mean general classes but just with the brahmacharis?
This would be one of the topics. Just a session where all the brahmacharis would come together and be trained in the philosophy and the practice of Krishna consciousness. So it would include not just theoretical philosophy but also practice, that is, brahmacharya is one of the aspects of the lifestyle of the brahmacharya. So that was also part of it.
I attended one of their classes, and I saw how it was run. It was very interactive. Although the program was that there would be a reading assignment for everyone, and then the next day everyone had read the assignment, and then someone would get up and speak about what they understood what was being explained in the reading. And then the other brahmacharis would ask questions based on his explanation of what was read, and everyone had read it. And that would cause a very interesting discussion to understand. So it was very dynamic in the sense that it was very, very interactive like that. It wasn't just like a class. And there would be questions and challenges on persons' points.
I just had a question for yourself, Maharaj, as well. You were saying that Maya acts on us very subtly by gradually decreasing our intelligence and determination, by creating opportunities for sense gratification that seem very innocent, and then so gradually wearing down. So if we find that we have been gradually or subtly worked on by Maya, and our intelligence and determination has been decreased, it seems very hard to
get out of it.
Yeah, to get out of it. It becomes like a vicious circle, self-perpetuating. And then
it becomes a habit, it does. But it's not like you shouldn't get out of it, because you should see that, sometimes, I guess, what's the word? There's this, what's called weakness of heart. It's one of the features of material attachment, is that one becomes sentimental towards sense gratification. He knows it's wrong, but still the sentiment is there. You can't give it up because of some sentiment, or still because the attachment is there, even though the intelligence is speaking otherwise, giving some indication. But you have to save yourself. And before you can save anyone, you have to save yourself first. So don't yourself become less effective. We're supposed to be making progress, not going backwards. If we start seeing ourselves becoming a little loose in our behavior, or a little loose in our speech, or a little loose in our association, or somehow or other finding ourselves in awkward, we have to just somehow or other pull back from that. It's a fine line between becoming fanatical and being sentimental. You have to find that line that is somewhat Krishna conscious. The devotee is not fanatical, but at the same time, he doesn't want to be victimized by Maya. So, we're not trying to become, just like hard-hearted. That's the other way. We become hard-hearted and insensitive. In order to overcome that takes, of course, purification of the heart. But at the same time, practically speaking, we should understand that what is causing us to act in that way Yeah, it's simply our own material desires, that's all. Yes.
Thank you very much. At Soho Street, this is a question to Imaj and also back to Imaj. At Soho Street, we've had brahmacharya classes running for over a year, some time. Like you said, not just in brahmacharya, but in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And I think a lot of devotees are, in theory, they're enthusiastic about these classes. One obstacle that we find, I myself find and I know the devotees find, is that in our own personal study, we find it's easier to do two things. One is to understand what's being discussed or what's being read, because in Kali Yuga the mind is a little slow and it jumps, and so you have to reread something. When you've got a book, you can do that, no problem, but when you're in a class it's difficult and you miss things. And another thing is that sometimes we find in our personal study it's easier to contemplate and digest, on your own. You have space, someone, you read something and you contemplate and digest, which may not be there in a class because the speaker continues speaking at a certain pace. And we find that the class time is taking up time that we would otherwise use for our own study. So sometimes we feel like, I like these classes, but really I have to admit, I feel I'd rather use that time for personal study. Have you experienced other devotees with the same situation, and if so, how have they overcome that obstacle?
That class time is taken away from personal study. That's the question.
Something that they may believe would be more beneficial for themselves because they find it easier to learn philosophy through personal study.
Interaction seems to bring more of an opportunity for memory. And you mentioned that as in the class things go on, but in personal study you can reflect and go back and stuff like that. Yeah, I think in a sense it's a matter of taste in terms of individual. Some person may get more out of personal study, and others may get more out of the classroom study. But I think if one has a taste for study, both cases they can benefit. In both cases you can benefit. I know I personally do both. And in a group, there's a kind of, when other minds involved, other thoughts and ideas come to the surface and may not be there when you're just doing your own personal study. Plus, personal study allows you to guide your study in a certain direction where you can somehow fulfill a certain need according to your own desire and how you want to learn. So I don't think one is better than the other. I think we should do both.
Yeah, the problem is that with the classes implemented, we feel like we've lost the time to do both.
Well, maybe, but why consider personal, group study as the push out of personal study? There might be other things that you could substitute time for. Brahmacharya means student, and student means study. So do both. Yes, and some hands are up.
Marge, I think maybe because at Soho Street is so seems like so service oriented, so much service to do, and so there's the brahmacharya class, and you need some time for personal study, but there's some service always ongoing. It's like so continuously buzzing with service. Could be one of the reasons that you have to choose between the two options.
Granted, one situation may be better than another, but I think a lot of it depends on desire. Because when you have the desire and it's strong enough, Krishna will give you the intelligence how to do it. Yes?
Just in relation to this point, I think Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj answered it